Absolute Martian Manhunter issue 3, Deniz Camp and Javier Rodriguez on the art. So this has also been a very solid book so far. It's been very surprising, and I am happy to say that I think this issue continues that trend. One of the things that the book keeps doing, which is keeping it very interesting to me, is just how kind of dark it is. Like,
yeah,
this
I wasn't ready for this one to be about lighting people on fire.
Yeah, so the last issue had like a shooter,
a mass shooter,
right? A shooter, and it represented that in a very interesting way. This issue is about the fact that, at least to begin with, 24 homeless people have all been burned alive, and it was all done simultaneously. So it's not like one person's went around and set a bunch of people on fire. 24 different perpetrators all set people on fire at the same time. And that's what our man John Jones and the Martian Manhunter, that's kind of what they deduce when they're talking to the other detective when they get to the crime scene and all that. And there's just a lot of great things in the art. There's like a panel here that I loved where John's down looking at the crime scene, and the Martian is, like, again, obviously he's just in his head, but it's represented to us as him standing up and looking over his shoulder, and it's just such a like a weird alien thing. And we're getting to that point now where we're getting both narration from John and the Martian, and the Martians are a little bit jumbled, but John kind of explains that he's still kind of getting to grips with English, so it's not completely fully formed yet. So you got all that going on, and then it just gets darker from there, because this all feeds into the overall narrative that we've been building now, which is that all these people lighting these fires don't know why they did it. They're very confused, and they all have these white clouds around their head to insinuate that the white Martian told them all to do this with these powers. And that's what we're kind of building up to. So it feels like it's building its larger narrative, but each issue has felt so focused in like how it's handled everything.
Well, it feels like a case of the week, but they're giving us just enough breadcrumbs for the larger picture, you know? So, which I appreciate. And like, yeah, that image of when they're in the interrogation room and John's looking at the guy and there's the white smoke around his head and the Manhunter's behind him and it just says partner. Just that whole dynamic of John Jones and the Martian being, you know, partners. I like that continues, and it's starting to become more of the focus that they're working together on this to unravel whatever the white Martian is.
And it's a relationship that's progressing, because John even says early on that he's starting to get comfortable with the idea of talking to him, like this voice in his head. He says that it should make him feel crazy, but the Martian keeps telling him that he isn't crazy, and for some reason he's believing him. So it presents this very interesting sort of like mentality that he's got right now because of this weird situation. And then you've got all of the personal stuff where like the Martian's like sitting in the middle of the couch, and you've just got all these different thoughts coming from the wife, which is like, oh, if I left and went to live with my mum, would he even notice I'm gone? And like the implication being that he's getting all these thoughts via the Martian. He's hearing all these bad things she's thinking about because things aren't so great right now, and you know, but is not like working up the courage to actually like talk about it or fix it in any way. So
yeah, the one that I like is when he comes home. There's all of these different like thought forms, I guess you could call them, on his like front lawn. It's almost like they're being drawn to him because of the Martian, and he's like stepping around them, and they start to take different forms. You can kind of see, but when it gets over to his wife and she's looking out the window, he's just kind of stepping over nothing. And so I really just like that we get his perspective, but what other people are seeing. You know, it really ties it back to the real world in a very good, fun way. Because in a very dark issue, having a bit of levity helps a whole lot.
Yeah, it's balancing its tone really well. And, you know, when things then get back into the plot where he gets the call and then he looks outside and there's fires all over the city, and the smoke in this full page spread is rising up from all these separate fires and made one big smoke cloud in the sky, and there's just vaguely the shape of a face in it. It's basically just a couple of lines that kind of look like eyes and a mouth, and it's like, that's the white Martian right there. That's what the white Martian's going to vaguely look like when we get to see it more properly. Yeah, it's good stuff, and it's basically the fires have escalated now to people setting houses on fire rather than people. And sometimes it's someone else's house, sometimes it's their own house, sometimes it's kids setting a playground on fire, but there's just all these fires appearing everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and also the concept of when he's talking to the Manhunter, when John is, in that he's like, well, what does the white Martian, why is it doing this? And Manhunter explains, like, can't explain it. It's, you know, why, what's he said? You can't explain, can't explain the criminal justice system to a sunflower seed, or, lay out prisons to a pebble. So it's almost like it's beyond, right?
Well, no, I guess more specific than that, though. And actually, I think the exciting part of the explanation is when he basically says, he's destroying homes, and you see a home, but that's not what the White Martian sees. The White Martian is not trying to destroy houses. He's trying to destroy the idea of a home. Yeah. He wants to take away the idea that a home even exists. And that's really like trippy, kind of like, but it's almost like a Ram V thing, is that the idea of home and just try to take it away, which feels like really dark. And it makes it feel, it's like, it's one thing to say, I'm going to burn down your house. It's another thing to say, I want everyone on Earth to not even remember what a home is, and not have that feeling of like a place where you can go and feel comfortable and secure.
Safety. Right. Because that was the thing that he said, that with his Martian powers, he, the first person that we see that was burned, the homeless guy, his name is Big Al, his last thought was, I want to go home. Right. But, what is home to someone that doesn't have one? And that's where this, it gets revealed, like, it's the concept of safety. In the last, thoughts, this guy just wanted to be safe. And that's such a primal thing, right? Like, it's such a bare bones desire for a human, and that's what it's trying to destroy.
And I think an important detail there is the idea that this homeless guy who's been homeless for 20 years still had that thought, I just want to go home, as he was burning alive, says that that's how strong the idea of home is that even for someone who's not had it in a long time, still has that desire to experience home. So it sets up this idea that it's not just someone who's like, it's not just about taking the home away, it's about taking that desire to go home away. And then it escalates even further, where John basically figures out that the next place they're going to target is this old hotel that's actually now a homeless shelter. And that's going to be burned. That's going to be where they go next to kill people. So we get this great sequence when John gets there, where it almost looks like all these different ideas representing what the White Martians trying to do, or it's almost like the smoke, or this multicolored smoke, very much like the Martian Manhunter stop, like color powers, are all hunting people in the building. But there's a great moment when the Martian comes swooping in with John and actually grabs one of these like multicolored like smoke shapes that look vaguely like a person, and like takes it by the neck and starts ripping them apart, almost like the idea that the Martian can like fight these telepathic ideas whilst John's physically running through the building and trying to save the people that are inside. So it's a really big sequence. And the book, we're in issue 3, and every single issue by the end has surprised me at least 2 or 3 times with how it's represented a new idea visually in the art. The art keeps me on my toes in a way that I don't think any book has in a long time, where it keeps doing very inventive things that keep building on the language that it's already established with the reader, where it's like, hey, we've set up that this thing represents this, that this means that, and it keeps building on it and doing new things with it. Really, really cool stuff. So
yeah, well, and just the idea that these are like the people that are trying to run from the fire, they're almost being paralyzed by it's almost like their own fears. It says like they're running from something, and it's a girl hearing, her dad saying, you've made dad angry, and then poverty and persecution. What's up?
He said, like 4 times in the span of like 5 seconds. It was really quite impressive.
Sorry. Because I'm trying to process all of this stuff at one time, but poverty and persecution and addiction, and it's taking the form of like syringes and whatnot. So it's the people are seeing all of their fears come to life, and the Martian just comes in and grabs one by the neck, and twists it to death essentially, and then we see the person that it was affecting, change color. Right, it's almost like they've come out of that haze. They go from like a dark color when John touches her to like this orangish, right? And again, it's just the art and the colors and everything coming together to effectively tell the story.
Now, it's really well done, and then obviously you get this kind of spokesperson for the White Martian who kind of appears, saying she has a message for the Green One, and we kind of end the issue more or less with this kind of, a bit of a monologue, if you will.
Yeah.
It welcomes you to watch. It loves an audience. Kind of really paints this White Martian as like the White Martian in this book feels like one of the best villains DC's had in a long time. It's yeah, and you go.
It's really hitting the dark side of things, right? Where the concept of dark side being a force of nature, which we'll get on that in a minute, I'm sure. But yeah, it really feels like the White Martian is just a force of nature, and you're really, how do you tackle that, right? And here, yeah, it makes it feel like it's going to be a task to overcome it.
Yeah, and it just sort of plays into what we've been doing visually the whole time with her saying, most people don't get it. It's not about the fire; it's about the smoke. Yeah. So yeah, this woman who was being used to deliver this message collapses all burned into John's arms at the end. And yeah, they've done such a good job of painting the White Martian here as such a ethereal force that's so powerful that it's like, I almost want to like say it's like a, oh god, I want to compare it a little bit to Kilgrave and Jessica Jones, but in a way a lot worse even. Because Kilgrave had the whole thing where he could tell anyone to do anything he wanted and they'd be powerless to stop themselves. This feels almost worse because this thing doesn't even have to be physically present. Like the White Martian can clearly just send out signals to people and cause these things to happen. And like, it's not even just trying to do it for itself. It's not just trying to do it to make itself more powerful. It's actively trying to erase positive ideas in the world to completely change how we even think. Like its goals are so much more malicious in so many ways. So just, I guess, bravo for really making me give a shit about this threat and making the green Martian feel like just kind of this like really interesting, mysterious but very welcome force that might help one person counteract the villain is kind of an interesting thing. It feels like there's more to go into with like where they actually come from, because at one point when John asks, like, where did this White Martian come from? He says, oh, it's so far away, it would be pointless to even put it in terms of any, like, distance you would understand. Yeah. So it doesn't sound like they're just coming from Mars. It sounds like they're coming from something very distant and far away, which arguably makes it even feel more ethereal than just a couple of aliens from the nearest planet.
Yeah, right. It's much bigger and it's esoteric, right?
Yes.
And also, I feel like they're building his partner or the other cop, right? Because when the other cop's talking to Jones and he's talking about the tragedy and whatever, about the homeless people that were burned, John says that, if he keeps going with this negativity from the job, the partner, the other cop, he's like, if he keeps going this way in 6 years from now, his kids will fight him beating his wife to death at the golf club in the garage, right? And one of the last people we see on that page, that's not John or the Martian or the woman on fire, it's him going, oh God, that's horrible. Changing professions, huh? So it's almost as if the White Martian, I took this as the White Martian spreading like a disease, and now this guy's going to be affected because there's already those negative thoughts for the White Martian to jump onto, right? And now he just saw this person on fire as well. And so I'm wondering if that's going to set up something between the two of them, right?
I could see it going that way. I actually just read this as him deciding that he was going to stop being a cop. Like this was slightly more positive in the sense that what he's seeing so horrific that he's going to quit and go do something else. But I can see why you're saying that maybe this is like the White Martian going to him. But I guess part of me thinks we'll never see him again. So we'll see if he's there next issue, I guess. Yeah.
But yeah, I was just picking up on that just because they're both in the same profession, right? And it's the job now, if we look at through the perspective of the Martian, right? How different it's made them. So, you know, if this is one of the guys he gets into because of that negativity of the world already, you know, I think that's a clever little.
Beg the question though: is there a main host that the White Martian's in, or does any host that the White Martian goes in burn out like this woman? Like if the White Martian goes into a body, are they going to be dead within minutes, no matter what? So there's not like a permanent host. Yeah, I'm curious. Right. I don't know an answer to that. I'm just speculating based on what we see here.
Oh, yeah, just like this, it does. It's almost spreading like a virus, right? We saw all the people with the cloudy rings in front of their eyes, around their head. You know, so that's definitely a different way. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe you, like you said, we'll never see this guy again. But you know, it felt like that was the lesson here on this last page. But yeah, and then he also, the first time that we get the Jean Jones kind of spelling that we're used to with the apostrophes and the Z's. You know, it's all in the smoke, but it almost makes it feel like it's like just the way that she's saying things through the White Martian. It's, you know, affecting the speech of the fire, which I thought that was clever as well.
Yeah. So no, super dark art, still just as inventive as it has been, and it's really doing a good job of building the larger narrative of this White Martian villain. So honestly, it's hard to really fault much of any of this. It's one of the best books DC are putting out. What are you giving this issue, Matt?
I'm giving this a 9.
Yeah, I mean, even go 9.5. Honestly, it's that damn good. It's been a surprise for me, this one. But
I get it.
I'm gonna go with it.